So friends, what I want to do now is I want to make a shelter for the sawmill. Everything's up and running, but before the wet weather comes, I'd like to cover it up, protect it from the elements. So what I need to do first is mill some beams for along the top. And really what I want is a 4x12, I think. And all I've got is this one that will make some 4x9 beams, but that should be okay. I do have some nice hemlock. That's good wood for lateral strength and making beams, and I want to save that for making the temple. So I'm going to use this log here. And what I'm going to do is drag it to the sawmill and then mill it into 2 beams. So we'll see how we get on. Oh, that just fits. Let's try that. So as you can see, the log is longer than the sawmill. It's longer than the tracks. These tracks will only accommodate a log that's about 17 feet long, and this tree is around 20 feet long. So the question is, how do we do that? Well, the good news is you don't have to go out and buy an extension set to make this longer. You only need another set of tracks if you're going to be doing long cuts all the time. If it's just one-off, then there's an easier way to do it. And so what we'll do is we're going to cut this one side all the way through so it's level. And in order to do that, we can only cut up to about here. And then we're going to have to take the log back and cut the rest of it off. Now the log isn't quite all the way along the tracks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it back a bit. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to use the gin pole. It's very easy. With the gin pole there, I can take the weight off the front and then just adjust the log forward a little bit. Okay. Weight off the log. It's quite easy just to move it by hand. It's almost no effort at all. Okay, don't be greedy, that should do. So I might just be able to get a 10-inch or 9.5-inch beam out of there. I only need one. It's only the front beam that needs to be strong. And now we need to adjust it so it's level. It's 10.5 inches this side and 12 1/8 this side. There's roughly a 2-inch difference. We'll raise it up 1 inch to compensate. Look at that. That was stuck in the bark. You wouldn't want to cut through that. Surprisingly, this bark is quite clean. So I had some doubts about the use of the water. For example, I was under the impression if you didn't lubricate it, then the blade would go blue. It would overheat and it would go blue. But that's not the case. I looked online because there's lots of forums of people with lots of experience, and it seems that many sawyers don't use the water at all unless it's necessary. For example, if there's some really resinous pine. But the general instruction is that all you need is a few drips, just so it's dripping onto the blade. That means the water's going to last a lot longer. And the other thing they all say is you should add a few drops of dishwashing liquid, so washing up liquid into the water tank. That will help keep the blade clean, but also help to lubricate the cut. So I'm going to have to take off about 3 inches on each side of this log in order to end up with a nice 4x9 or 4x10 beam. So first I'm just going to take an inch off the top to make it level, have a look, and then hopefully I'll be able to cut another 2 inches and create a 6x2, or you can go 2x6, whatever you like. It's all the other way around in the UK. And then I'll flip it over onto that side. So let's see how she starts after being sat here for a week. See that we've come to the end of the log and the sawmill won't go any further. So now what we need to do is we need to move the entire log back so that the last 3 feet can be cut to make the first cut level. And the problem is that we've got to keep that cut level all the way. So we're going to have to use a string or something to make sure we don't lose the level line of this cut. And then we can cut to the end. Let's try it. Okay. So I guess you can see what I'm getting at here. I'm going to put a line on it, a builder's line, just a bit of string. And make sure that that's in line with the cut. And I can think of another way that you could do this, and that would be to measure the distance from the rail to the top of the log on both sides. Pulled it all the way back so I can get to cut the last bit. I'm just going to make this level with the line and level with the cutting blade. Let's get rid of this strap. Okay. Like I said, if you're going to do a lot of this work, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier if you just buy some extra track. But if it's just for a one-off, there's no reason to go through so much expense. So again, as before, then this side is too high. So I'm going to have to use the gin pole and jack it up on that side and put a board under it to make it level with the string. Okay, that looks pretty good. Anyway, this is only for a shed for the sawmill, so I don't need everything to be perfect. In fact, I could probably do the whole thing with a chainsaw if I wanted to. But I wanted to experiment with cutting logs that were longer than the actual sawmill trucks. So this has given me some experience. Right, let's get that clamped up and cut it. We can check this by lowering the saw blade down onto the log to see if it's level. That looks pretty damn good. Okay, right, let's get rid of this string and cut the rest of this log. So now what we have is 20-foot long level cut on one side of the log. It means if I flip it around and rest it on that level cut, then I can move it backwards and forwards and I don't have to do any adjustment for height. Could do it 90 degrees as well. It's going to be easier. That's all level and flat on one side. So now you can see we're clear of the blade and we can start the next cut. So I'm going to see if I can just take 1 inch off, make a flitch, and then I might be able to get a 2x6 or something out of there. That's as far as we can go with that one. Now we got a 20-foot piece of firewood. We got a log that's parallel on both sides. Okay, we're clear. We got a nice 2-inch board there. I'm gonna have to edge that. I think I'll just put it on the sawmill tracks for now. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have lunch and then I'll figure that out afterwards. But it looks like we're gonna get a nice 9 or 10-inch beam out of that. See you later. Well, you may or may not have noticed, but I just did something really stupid there. I flipped the log around to make it easier to clamp, but then I didn't adjust or compensate for the depth because I was cutting on the other side. So I've ended up with 2 2x11 beams instead of 1 4x11. So basically I've created a lot of unnecessary work for myself. It's okay though, I can just nail them together and it will make a 4x11. It'll be just as strong. But it just goes to show, the old adage is so true. Measure twice, cut once. Well, I measured once and I cut twice. Right, now we've got to take the edge off this and make it square. Looks like we're just going to get 9.5. 10 3/4 on this side. So we've got to jack that end up 1 inch. Now these should be getting a lot easier to move. Well, that's it. That's my first oversized beam on the Wood-Mizer LT15 portable sawmill. In fact, it's my first beam ever. I think this will work quite well once we get it installed. Anyway, that's about it for today. So I'll see you next time.